The Barbarian is one of the first classes that many players are drawn towards, but in Diablo 4, if you don't get your build right, leveling can become a slow, arduous process. So today I wanted to bring you my Bloodcry build that manages to destroy early level content. We managed to stack so much damage over time through our Rend ability, which applies tons of crowd control as well. We have multiple ways of healing, and we have a crazy ultimate skill that will tear through bosses for you. The build also has excellent fury generation, you never seem to run out with it, and we even have a panic unstoppable button that with our build not only heals you but also cancels any crowd control effects, which causes a lot of deaths for barbarians. The first ability you want to unlock is Frenzy, which unleashes a rapid flurry of blows in front of you and generates fury. You want to get Enhanced Frenzy, which is going to grant additional attack speed and generate even more fury, and then most importantly, you want to get Combat Frenzy, which gives you a whopping 8% damage reduction per stack when you use Frenzy. This is absolutely massive for boss fights. The constant 24% damage reduction with 3 stacks of Frenzy is so underrated for a melee based class. Your core ability, which you want to unlock as soon as it's available, is Rend, whereby you cleave enemies in an arc in front of you, dealing direct damage but way more damage through bleeding over time. Enhanced Rend is going to increase the duration of vulnerable on enemies by 2 seconds, which I'll talk about a little bit later as to how we're going to apply it. Furious Rend is going to grant 4 fury per enemy hit with the direct damage from Rend, up to a maximum of 20 fury each time. That's a potential to gain back over half of the fury you spent in the first place with Rend. Now you want to pick up 3 points in the pressure point passive here, which is going to be one of the main ways we apply vulnerable, meaning we can do a further 20% damage to enemies. Remember, for any passive I suggest when leveling, if you have an option to unlock a new ability, always prioritize that first before going for any passives. Next, you want 1 point in Rallying Cry, which is going to increase your movement speed and increase your fury generation by a considerable amount for the duration of the shout. Enhanced Rallying Cry is going to save your ass. It grants you Unstoppable, which breaks any CC effects your character has. Tactical Rallying Cry makes it so you instantly generate 20 fury when you cast Rallying Cry, and you get even more fury generation on top. The next ability you want is War Cry, which increases your damage by 15% for the duration of the shout. Enhanced War Cry gives you Berserking for 4 seconds, which increases your movement speed and damage by 25% on top. Power War Cry further increases your damage bonus by another 10% when 6 enemies are nearby when you cast War Cry. I kept War Cry 1 out of 5 for the majority of my leveling, but once you get enough skill points through Renown, then make this 5 out of 5 for the extra damage boost. 2 passives you definitely want here. You want 3 points in Booming Voice, which significantly increases the duration your shout is applied for. Then you want 3 points in Raid Leader as soon as possible, because this is going to heal your character for 3% per second per shout. With Booming Voice, our shouts now last for over 7 seconds each, so with both shouts you can literally heal yourself for 42% of your health every 20 seconds or so. It's actually very, very good. One aspect you should seriously look out for, which unfortunately is a world drop and not found in the codex, is the Bold Chieftain's resource aspect, which reduces the cooldown of your shout depending on how many nearby enemies there are when you cast it. Honestly, if you get this, it's the absolute money for this build and will make leveling a joke, as you can constantly get so many damage buffs and heal yourself. The next major skill you want to unlock is Death Blow, which you want to make 5 out of 5 as soon as possible. Death Blow smashes down your weapon in a narrow cone in front of you. The key with this skill is that if it kills an enemy, it resets the cooldown so you can keep using it again and again to inflict massive damage. So the rotation becomes really simple. Generate some fury using Frenzy and your shouts, use Rend to weaken enemies, and when they're about a third health left, use your Death Blow to finish them off, and then you can keep spamming Rend and Death Blow again and again until your shouts are off cooldown. Remember, positioning with Death Blow is really important. If you have a weak enemy next to the elite or boss, you can keep killing the weak enemy so you can continuously inflict huge damage with Death Blow to an elite or boss again and again. Enhanced Death Blow is going to increase damage to bosses by 100%, and then Fighter's Death Blow gives you 20 fury if you hit someone with Death Blow. For passives, you want 1 point into Hamstring, so your Rend now slows enemies, meaning on your gear, things like damage to slowed enemies, damage to crowd controlled enemies is going to provide you with even more damage. This also unlocks Cut to the Bone, which you eventually want 3 out of 3 points in, which increases bleeding damage to vulnerable enemies by 18%. Other weapon mastery passives you want, and you may only be able to max these out later on while leveling, are 3 points in Fighter, so you gain 9% increased damage against close enemies and some damage reduction from distant enemies. 3 points in No Mercy, so you have a 9% increased critical strike chance against slowed enemies, which thanks to Hamstring, most of your enemies are going to be slowed. And then 3 points in Slaying Strike, so you deal 24% increased damage against injured enemies, which is really going to help with Death Blow specifically, so you can guarantee that kill with the extra damage and replenish your cooldown. You want to unlock your ultimate Call of the Ancients as soon as possible, which is going to summon 3 Ancients for 6 seconds, which deal massive damage to enemies, making it perfect to use whenever there's a pack of elites or a boss you want to quickly dispatch off. Prime Call of the Ancients increases your attack speed and damage by 10% when they are out, and Supreme Call of the Ancients gives each of your Ancients even more powers. Put 1 point into Tempered Fury so you can unlock Invigorating Fury, which is another way we can heal ourselves. Whenever we spend 100 Fury, we're going to be able to heal ourselves for 9% of our health. So sometimes spamming Rend a few times can actually help heal you as well as put out massive DPS. Our key passive, which you want to unlock whenever it's available, is Gushing Wounds, which we have a chance equal to our critical strike chance to increase the bleeding damage by the value of our critical strike damage bonus. So critical strike chance and critical strike damage bonus are going to be 2 affixes that you really want to chase on your gear. The passive also gives a chance to cause bleeding enemies to explode, which further spreads bleeding when we overpower them. At level 15, you unlock the Barbarian questline, which lets you unlock a weapon technique. Barbarians can gain expertise when using certain weapons, which gives those weapons specifically more bonuses. What a weapon technique does is place that expertise bonus across all your weapons, so regardless of what you're using, you will gain that benefit. For this build, I highly recommend using two-handed sword expertise in your technique slot, so any weapon will apply bleeding damage, which is going to synergize with the rest of our build. For example, Rend uses our two-handed slashing weapon, Frenzy uses your one-handed dual-wield weapons, but Death Blow can use any weapon. I'd highly recommend assigning Death Blow to your slashing weapon for this build. For your slashing weapon, I'd highly recommend using a two-handed axe, so you can also gain the two-handed axe expertise, which increases damage to vulnerable enemies, so both your Rend and Death Blow will benefit from this. If when leveling you get an insane two-handed sword to drop instead of an axe, you can swap around your technique to the axe technique, so you still gain both benefits with the extra bleed and extra vulnerable damage when you use your abilities. As Rend and Death Blow are now reliant on your slashing weapon, you only really need to replace your slashing weapon while leveling, which is great because your other weapons, your one-handed weapons and your two-handed bludgeoning weapon, can now function as stat sticks, which don't need replacing very often, and thus they function really well to place legendary aspects on. I've already talked about the Bold Chieftain's resource aspect, which can reduce your cooldown of your shout significantly. Two other great aspects to look out for are the offensive aspect of the Expectant, which increases your core skill, so Rend damage in this case, when you use your basic attack repeatedly, which we'll be doing a lot with Frenzy. You can get this one from the Underroot dungeon fairly early on in Skosglen. Edgemaster's offensive aspect is going to be another good one, which increases your skills damage based on how much fury you have when you cast it. Again, with this build, you're really going to be topped up on fury, so you'll really maximize the benefit of this. This one you can also get pretty early on from the Old Stones dungeon in Skosglen. So there you have it, my Bloodcry Barbarian build that manages to destroy the massive packs of enemies and single target bosses both with ease. You never run out of fury, you never run out of health, so you have little downtime while leveling. If you enjoyed what I talked about today, remember to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for more Diablo builds as we get deeper into the game. I'm Mr. Onnit, and that's it for today. Peace out, guys.